Hello, hello. I can see that we are online. Please, just as always, let's check whether everything is fine with connection. Please put pluses here in live streaming channel if you can see my screen, if you hear me well, if everything is fine with stream. I'll wait a couple of seconds and then we will start. Not many people today here, as far as I can see. You can put pluses in YouTube chat as well. And then I will be able to see that everything is fine. Okay, cool. Now I can see that everything is fine. Yeah, we have some pluses here, so we are good to go. Okay, so today, what we are going to do today, we will review a solution of first task from home library service, let's say, cycle. Here you had to implement just REST API with framework Node.js, and you had some, let's say, business requirements for this application, and you didn't need to use real database. You had to use just in-memory database. Probably just something like you've used on REST API task. I mean simple CRUD API. So let's refresh in mind what we had to do here. You had definition. First of all, you had to create a repository from template for this task. Its name should be Node.js 2024 Q1 service. By the way, I updated this thing a little bit late. So if name of repository doesn't match this one, if this is still 2023, it's also fine because it's my fault, but it's better to have actual name. So you had definitions of your interfaces. You had users, artists, tracks, albums, favorites, which contains IDs of entities above and refers to them. And also you had to implement API. According to these requirements, you had to implement API for users, tracks, artists, albums, favorites, and you had to implement different routes with different methods, pass parameters, and so on. You have explicitly described endpoints and expected answers, expected responses from them. What else? As I mentioned, we use in-memory database. We will connect a real database in next task. Also, you should use application JSON format for request and response body. You had to do some separation for application. I mean, you have to split at least like Nest.js expects from you. I mean, you need to have a separated file for controller, for module, for service. You can extract some reused things into common domain and so on. So just as always, you shouldn't put everything in one file. Also, you should not return users password when you return users. it means you shouldn't return it for a single user, for multiple user. By the way, there is one tricky case that you should also exclude password when you return user after update. It's important, and time up to time people forget about this, but whenever you return user, you should return it without password. Also, you have references. For example, your track, as you can see, it has artist ID and album ID. And if corresponding master entity is removed from database, then you need to set this ID to null. This is also a requirement. Okay. Also, when you want to add entity to favorites, you need to check that it exists in your database first. If your entity doesn't exist, then this entity can be added to favorites. Also, you should use npm start command to run your server. By default, you use port 4000 and port value is stored in .env file. So if you change it there, then you should run your application on another port. Also, you should validate incoming requests, and you can fix and use OpenAPI file in doc folder. You can implement Swagger UI over it. Okay, you can ask your questions in live streaming channel just in case, and I will start. Okay. Today we have a solution for review from student Ksenia. And let's just take a look at the code. Let's try to run tests, and maybe we will find something that could be improved. First of all, we had issue with test cases, and if you didn't do it before, probably it's too late to add comments, add commits to your application now. But anyway, for proper check, I will do it. Because if I will run npm run test, then tests, you have two types of tests there. Tests with authentication and tests without authentication and authorization, and now npm run test run both. Vadim Antonov fixed it, and now you need to just follow instructions and update from master repository. No change to commit. Okay. I've done it previously, but anyway, you can do it during the check. And let's try to start. First of all, I created a .env file from .env example. It didn't exist. Let's not forget to do this. I copy .env.example file and make it just .env. And then I run npm start. Okay, we can see that application is running. Then let's try to run our tests. Okay, we can see that all tests are passed. It means that mostly our API works correctly. We can assume that everything works fine because tests cover multiple scenarios. You can see what is checked there. Really a lot of stuff. So I think we can just take a look at the code. What we can see here, first of all, we have function bootstrap. It's asynchronous. We provide it with app module and use nest factory create. Nest factory, this is stuff that we need to create an instance of application. We can have multiple applications in our project, but here we have only one. What else? We load API YAML file, and then we set up API. On API endpoint, we set up a Swagger document. How to check it? When our application is running, we can go to the, we remember that we used port 4000, and here we can go to this port, localhost 4000 API. Yeah. And here we can make requests with this fancy UI. So for example, we can get all the users. You can see that we have no users currently. We can try to create user with login and password. Let's try it out. Login, some email, and some password. It's not very strong, but anyway, yes, our user is created with version 1, and created and updated it has the same timestamp. And when we will try to get all the users, we can see this user here, and it's without password. Okay, works correctly, and we implemented Swagger UI here. Okay, looks fine. Let's dive deeper and take a look at the app module. App module collects all other modules of applications, and also we provide default controller. When we will go to the localhost 4000 without additional information, we will get a response from this default endpoint. We will take a look at this later. I have first concern here. Use value. This is how we can inject our database connection. And here we provide with this connection by token DB connection, and we use DB as value. And DB is already type of DB, so I think we don't need this typecast here. It can be safely removed. And yeah, let's probably try to run linter. Maybe I'm missing something. Nope, everything is fine. So try to avoid typecasts and use it as much as, sorry, don't know how to say it in English. Okay, so anyway, the less typecasts, this is better. Ideally, you shouldn't have it at all, but it's not possible, of course, especially for some unit test mocks. But anyway, try to avoid it if possible, because typecasts may lead to runtime errors. Okay, this is app controller. We get response from it. First of all, we have typo in message. I always suggest you to install English spell checker. You can see that it highlights to me that we have problem here, right? Welcome. Yes, we can fix it, and it's okay. Second thing is that we hard-coded port number here. It should be environment variable instead, because okay, I decided to run my application on another port. Let's run it on port on this one. Let's rerun our application. And when we will go to this port, you can see that it still refers to default port, but of course, if we will go to this URL, we will see that there is nothing there. So don't forget to use dynamic values in all the places. Okay, this is about root module. Let's probably take a look at users. let's take a look at the module. It collects providers, it provides us with controller. Here we inject database connection, okay. Let's take a look at the controller. Our controller, as you noticed, many things in Node.js is built on top of decorators. So what is controller? This is just a class that is decorated with controller decorator, and it contains methods with decorators that means HTTP methods, and you can provide custom successful response code. By the way, status code OK or 200 is default status code, so we don't need to specify it. Let's remove it. If we want to provide another HTTP code as a successful response, then we can do it, but this is just meaningless. We don't need it. What we can see here is that controller simply provides execution flow to the service. In general, it's fine, but we can see later that inside of user service we do some validation of request body, of URL, of parameters, and so on. From my point of view, this should be done at controller level, or even better, you can you can define your data transfer objects using class validator and class transform, and it will be validated automatically. You just need to define some additional decorators over your models. Just a reminder that it will be better. Okay. What else do we have here? Let's go to the user service. Here we inject database connection, and by the way, not sure that we need decorator inject here. Probably we could just mention it, but I'm not sure. Okay, so let's take a look at the get users method. They all are asynchronous. Probably this is to make migration to real database usage easier, because yes, of course, we have in memory database which is just array under the hood, but when we will switch to usage of real database, then we will have all the separations asynchronous, and our methods should be asynchronous as well. So this is why we have all these asyncs here. Okay, we just get users from our database, we emit password, and then we return user without password. Also, if we get single user by ID, then we validate ID format. We will take a look at this later. If ID is valid, then we try to get user by ID, and if such user found, then we return it. I can see that this logic is duplicated. Yes, you can see that it's here for 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times, so probably this could be extracted into separate function which just accepts user and return user without password. It will allow you to avoid breaking some linter rules, like no unused variables, because password variable is unused here, and it will allow you to avoid logic multiplication. Let's take a look here. This function just accepts ID, and it checks that it satisfies UUID regular expression. Okay, why not? By the way, if I remember correctly, Node.js has something for this. Let me check. Let me check. Random UID. Okay, maybe I'm mistaken, but probably Node.js has something like this to validate UUIDs. You can write in chat whether I am correct. Okay. Here we validate if our string doesn't match UUID restrictions, then we throw error, and because we throw HTTP error, bad request exception, when it will be handled by controller, then our controller will send this bad request response to requester. This is very convenient. Okay. When we create user, we try to validate this data transfer object. As I mentioned, you could use decorators instead of this. Okay, we check that we have login and password, and that login and password are strings. It looks like this one should be separated function because this logic looks big in line, and by the way, it may be reused somewhere, so this is better to extract such things into helpers. Okay, we create a new user. We add and overwrite, if it was provided, a new ID for it using UUID v4. We set version 1, and also this is people all often forget about this, but these timestamps can be different, because these are two quick but separated calls. If I remember correctly, I even faced issue with unit tests, because it was working mostly fine, but in very rare cases it failed because of this, because we used two separated date now calls, and sometimes it differs by 1 millisecond. So just do it like this. Create separated variable. For example, current timestamp, date now, and use it here and here. Then we push this newly created user to database. Then we omit password and return user without password. It's good that we omit password here, but as I mentioned already, we could extract it to separated function. Delete user delegates this call to delete entity from collection. As far as I understand, we have some generic methods to get entities from different databases, let's say, or tables if we had Postgres here. Okay, I can see that for delete we return this response, but this delete user doesn't return anything, so there is not many sense in return undefined from controller. What else? We have update password method, which receives old password, new password, and validate it, then try to find the user, check that passwords are not equal. If it's so, then it throws a forbidden exception. Then we create updated user, update it in database, and then return updated user. Okay. Too many things in line. This one could be extracted into function. And this probably too. But okay. This method, at least this method works correctly. Let's take a look at the albums. Modules looks pretty same everywhere, except I guess favorites. We will take a look at this later. So let's just skip looking at this and take a look at the controller. Looks pretty same as user's controller. We can remove those default status codes because we don't need it. Same mistake here. As we had in user service, we return void from service. And same structure as in users controller and service. But it's good that we have consistency here. Similar things should be done similar way in your application. Is invalid DTO. DTO name, DTO year, is ID invalid. As I already mentioned, it's better to use validation pipes with decorators. If we get albums, then we just return all albums. If we need some entity by ID, then we get it by ID using generic function. By the way, it accepts type. Here, it's good. Generics are very flexible. It allows us to avoid duplication of types. It's very nice that you used it. Okay, we can create album. We check that it's valid. If it's valid, then we add entity to collection using generic methods. We will take a look at this later. Okay, seems to be correct. Except the fact that it should be done at controller level from my point of view, because this is about request validation. Delete album deletes entity from albums, and then it sets tracks IDs to null. From my point of view, this should not be done here because it's implicit dependency. You expect that your album service works only with albums, but it changes different collection. It changes tracks, and I expect that all logic related with tracks management located into tracks service. So it's better to have method that sets track ID, that sets album ID in tracks to null, and album service should call have this track service injected, and it should use its API. And also we delete album from favorites. Okay. Here the same stuff with update. We validate the DTO, we validate ID format. By the way, as far as I can see, artist ID. Okay, I was confused why we have this validation of IDs twice, but we validate ID of album, and we validate ID of ID in DTO. Okay. Then we put our update entity into collection. Okay, we will take a look at this generic logic. And also we have data transfer objects. Would be better to have some decorators here. By the way, if we didn't have this doc file with YAML description of OpenAPI specification, we could use OpenAPI decorators here on our data transfer objects, and then we could provide some decorators to controller, and we could create Swagger UI on the fly. And it would change in case we change our code. This is better from my point of view, but it's really up to you. You may want to manage your OpenAPI specification separately, but it's better to have it in the same place where you have code. So when you change it, you will not forget to update it there. Okay, let's take a look at the artists. Pretty same. Let's take a look at the artist service. Yeah, pretty same. Yeah, via sync I asked, but then I realized that this is preparation to migration to usage of real database. On creation of artist, we validate data transfer object. If it's valid, then we try to then we push entity to collection. When we delete artist, we delete entity from collection, we delete entity ID from favorites, and here the same stuff. Yeah, we replace artist ID to null in tracks and albums, and also this should belong to corresponding service, to album service and to track service accordingly. Update the same as album update. Let's take a look at the tracks. I assume it will be pretty same. Yes, this is the same. We have slightly different implementation of is invalid DTO. Okay, get tracks, create track, delete track. By the way, track doesn't have it's not referred by other entities. For example, albums and artists doesn't contain tracks, so we only need to delete this entity from collection and from favorites. And pretty same update. Okay, data transfer objects. Then we will take a look at the types and interface that we have here. Prefix I for interfaces is obsolete in TypeScript. You shouldn't use it. Of course, it depends on your naming conventions on your project, but you don't really need it. And by the way, I would like to suggest you to use only one thing, either types or interface, not both. And by the way, types are, let's say, maybe better is not the best word, but it's more powerful. It allows you to do more things than interfaces, so you could just use types and do not use interface at all. And you don't need to prefix your types with T. Just the same as you don't need to prefix your interfaces with I. This is not needed anymore. Okay, let's take a look at the favorites. Interesting. I thought that okay, maybe we will need it in different in next task, but you may have some issues with circular references, and Node.js has a specific API for this. But okay, maybe it works somehow without it for now. Okay, we have post and delete methods handlers. We can get all, we can we can add record, we can add track, album or artist to favorites, and we can delete it from there. Let's take a look at the service. Here we create blueprint for favorites response. From my point of view, we didn't use correct method here, because map means that you create new array with elements of previous array plus applied callback, but we don't assign it to anything. So if you don't want to assign it to something, you should use for each here, for example, or you should use you could probably use reduce, and you could avoid of creation of this variable. You could just create it on the fly. It would be better. Use proper API methods according to their common sense, let's say. Okay, we have a couple of methods for different entities. We have generic method add ID to favorites collection. Okay, we will take a look at implementation. We have generic method delete entity ID from favorites. Okay, it's very good that we use generic methods and avoid duplication, but I'm not sure that this function should be really generic, because it's not IDs. It's not different for me. So how ID of track differs from ID of album or ID of artist, but okay, we will take a look at the generic implementation. Okay, let's take a look at the helpers. Add entity to collection. Here we have generic function. It accepts some type which extends object with property ID. This is something that contains ID. Also, we receive entity DTO. This is something that extends T, but that is T without ID. But T without ID is just record string unknown, I think. Without a mid, of course. But if we had more properties here, it's the same now. If we had more properties here, then it's better to use this amid. Okay. Let's not change it. Also, we have collection of such items. We create a new item. Let's check whether we need typecast here. Why TypeScript complains? Because T emit ID is not sound parameter of type T. Okay, that's why TypeScript complains. Okay, let's leave it as is. Then we push stuff to the collection and return this newly created entity. If we are pushing entity to favorites collection, then we validate ID format. Then we try to get a corresponding entity in our regular collections. If this entity exists, then we push entity to favorites. If not, we return unprocessable entity exception. Okay. Delete entity from collection. Here we validate ID. We try to find entity. If entity found, then we use splice to remove index of entity. T. Interesting. By the way, I'm not sure that this works for objects. Let's check. Yeah. This is not working, but why it works? I'm just curious. Entity T find. Let's probably try to remove entity from collection. Maybe it works because we had only one entity at the time. Let's try to use our API, our Swagger API. Oh, sorry, wrong screen. Okay, and let's try to run it on regular port for simplicity. Okay, let's try to create 2 users. We have no users now. Let's try to create first user. Login will be user1 at gmail.com and password will be 5. And let's try to create user2 gmail.com with choose execute. Okay, let's check that we have our users. Okay, we have user2. Let's probably try to remove this user2. My assumption is that we remove first user because it will remove from -1 to... Okay, let's check. Okay, user has been deleted. We tried to remove second user and it correctly removed second user. Curious why it works. Delete entity from collection. Delete entity from collection. Maybe people in chat know why it works. Because it's really interesting. Okay, you can write your suggestions, your assumptions. I will move forward. Okay, when we delete entity ID from favorites, then we check that this ID was previously present in collection. Then we get index and we do splice. This works because, this is a primitive value and we will be able to find it in collection. Same for deletion from favorites. Collection includes delete ID from favorites. By the way, this code is the same here, so probably you could reuse this inside of this method. Get entity by ID, we validate ID format. Here we try to find entity by ID. If we found it, then we return it. If not, we throw not found exception. Multiple functions here have some problems because they do too many things for one function. Okay, your function get entity by ID should not validate ID because it tries to get entity, and second action is validation. Validation should be done at the level at the higher level, at controller level, not here. This is not responsibility of this function. And functions should have one responsibility and one action that it does if possible. Okay, replace ID to null, collection map. If some entities has this key, then we set it to null. If not, then we leave it as is. Okay. Looks good. By the way, you can see that key to nullify is configurable, and thanks to this, we can use it for different collections. Because sometimes you need to nullify artist ID, sometimes you need to nullify album ID, and so on. So you can reuse this function. Update entity in collection. We try to find entity, then we merge it with entity data transfer object, then we... Really, how it works? Collection index of... Okay, I got it. Maybe I have problems with understanding of JavaScript. Maybe if it will be... I try to find by object, but it was not the same object. Okay, let's probably check it. Object, okay, A1. Then we create array that contains this object. And then we try to get this object index of object. And what happens? Yeah, it works. Silly me. Okay, this code works correctly. If you search by non-primitive value, but it's the same object that you are searching for, then it will work. Okay, cool. I thought that it works with primitives only. Okay, validate ID format. We already took a look at this. What we didn't check here? What we didn't check? I assume that API YAML is correct. I will not check it. Data transfer objects could be improved with decorators and inbuilt validation. You have examples in Node.js documentation. methods that change some records, they have to belong to corresponding service. Please don't mix domains. It's good that you have multiple reusable things. Very nice. And probably this is it. Good work. In general, good work. We have some minor improvements, but this work is consistent. It avoids duplication not as much as possible, but enough. We reduced the amount of boilerplate, so just fix some stuff and this work will be better. Okay, I will take a look at the chat. No suggestions regarding this issue with index of by object, but we figured out it ourselves. Okay, let's take a look at your next assignment. You need to implement two things. You need to implement containerization for your applications. You should use Docker containers and Docker desktop for this. If you are using Mac, you can use Docker parts separately, or you can use Docker desktop for Mac. And then you need to connect your database, your application to a real database. It should be Postgres. Also, you should not write raw requests, raw SQL queries. You should use some ORM. For this assignment, we use type ORM or Prisma to communicate with your database. And you have some implementation details, like you should create a Docker ignore and list files that should be ignored by Docker in order to reduce size of your Docker image. Also, you need to create two Docker files. One will be used for building image of your Postgres database. One will be used for building image of your application. Also, you need to create a Docker compose file that will describe your Docker application with multi-containers. And yes, your containers should be dependent one on another, because if you fail to start a database, you don't need to start application. And also you need to specify a custom network that will be used for communication between application and database containers. Also, you need to scan your containers for security vulnerabilities, and you need to push your images to your personal or private repository on Docker Hub. Regarding Postgres connection, as I mentioned, logic of application remains the same, but you need to connect, you need to use Postgres as your data source. Also, you need to use type ORM or Prisma, store information on database connection in .env file, just as you store port or other environment variables. And if possible, your Postgres database should be run inside Docker container. You will have extra points for this. You have score for correct migration of your application to Postgres. And you can see that there are not too many points, yes, but you have forfeit minus 10 points for each failing tests with npm run test. So please take it into account. Tests should pass just as previously, because these tests indicate that your application works correctly. Tests just send a request and receive a response and check it. It doesn't matter what is data source under the hood. It could be in-memory database, it could be Postgres, MongoDB, DynamoDB, whatever. It can be anything, and your test should work the same way. That's basically it. Let's take a look at the chat. Is implementation of Swagger strict requirement, or we can just edit doc API YAML file without starting Swagger. For getting points, you need to only fix YAML file, but it's better to have Swagger. Parsed UID pipe, yes, we even have built-in validation pipe in Node.js. Should we throw HTTP errors from services, or we should do it only from controllers? From my point of view, these are two separated layers of logic. If you throw HTTP errors because your request is invalid, or something is wrong that belongs to controller level, then you should throw it from controller. If something happens on service level that should lead to some HTTP response, you can throw it at service level. But at least validation should happen at controller level. Import validate from UUID. Yeah, we have this in UUID package. I thought about something built in Node.js. Thank you for reviewing my tasks. Was very helpful. Yeah, thank you for your solution. It's really nice. What is the right way to organize modules, imports, exports, providers if we need album service in FAF service and FAF service in album service? This is the issue that I mentioned previously. Yes, organization of modules will be the same, but you have a specific Nest.js API that allows you to forward those references without circular dependencies. You can Google it. I will not tell it to you. Thanks for the lecture, Maxim. Okay, thanks you too. Thanks for coming. Guys already created channels for upcoming tasks. So I believe you can start with implementation. So thank you for joining the stream. Have a nice day and have a nice have fun from learning how to connect database. Bye bye.